Metal Mule. Engineered to be different.
My name is Gerald Vince, and this is my brother Austin Vince. And we've made a couple of DVDs about our bike trips around the world. And we managed to get them on television.
That's the coup, that's the big story.
Yeah.
Losers get their holiday put on TV.
Well, the reason I haven't gone the same route as Austin is because I'm not very good at public speaking. I've tried it once or twice and it was a disaster. So I'm more of a backroom man when it comes to this sort of stuff. You know, I'm happy to help out at these shows and exhibitions. But Austin's the front of house chap.
When we did Mondo Enduro, I'd made a few films on Super 8 only, and this would be in like 92, 93. I was teaching at Mill Hill and I was making little fun films about kids on school trips and climbing trips and stuff like that. And they'd goof about and I'd film it, and then when the film got processed, I would cut it all up and edit it back and glue it back together in the right order in my bedroom with all the little bits of film hanging on a piece of string. I've got kids at school to help me do it, and then we did the soundtrack completely analog with some DJ decks and just played all the music and spoke all in one massive live take for these whole films. And so when we did Mondo Enduro and bought this unbelievable £2,000 camera in 1995, that was just insane. The bikes weren't as much as that, and this camera was 2,000 quid, and we all pitched in. And we did the stuff, and we obviously knew when we were on the trip that it was pretty exciting. We certainly knew when we filmed stuff that we'd never seen anything like that on TV ourselves, ever. When we got back from Mondo Enduro and we finally got the show on Discovery, the woman who commissioned it at Discovery said, you know, if you've got any other ideas, we pitched a history travel show, filmed all around, super low budget, daytime Discovery, filmed all around Britain, and the brilliant thing was that they let me just make programs about anything I wanted. Pillboxes, old railways, old canals.
Sewage systems.
Sewage systems, yeah. I did the only documentary ever made about the sewer system in Leicester. It's killer. And during the course of what was to turn out to be like my first nervous breakdown, no, I didn't actually have it, but I learned so much. And all the time I was thinking, oh, if only I'd known this when I'd been shooting Mondo Enduro. And I kept gnashing my teeth thinking how good Mondo Enduro could have been if I'd known just a few things more. So when Dave Greenhow came up with the idea of Terra Circa, I went up to him and I said, can I come on your trip? Because I think I could make the film I meant to make back on Mondo Enduro. That's the idea of what makes an adventure travel film appealing is incredibly straightforward to answer. If it's interesting or entertaining, or even better, both, then that's it. Now, of course, it's in our festival, and it will grow. It will go places. The DVD will sell, or whatever. It will achieve a life of its own. What makes something interesting or entertaining, we could, of course, all have a massive conversation about for a long, long time, and of course, not everyone will agree.
We had the 5-minute rule, which was as if you felt like switching it off after 5 minutes, it was out. But there was a lot of films like that, where people had done very interesting trips, but they just hadn't filmed it correctly. And you know, it's a real shame that these people have done a fabulous thing, and you want to hear their story, but they send you this stuff that is unwatchable.
There's hugely what's really true is that the amount of people doing spectacular, interesting, epic adventures, the amount of people doing that stuff is beyond measure, especially once you start going Europe-wide, North America, including in the English-speaking world. There's so much stuff happening. So let's say about 1% of those people are making a film. That's still hundreds and hundreds of films. But of those hundreds and hundreds, only about 5% of them know what they're doing enough to make a film that obeys, dare I say it, the grammar of television with enough rigor to be watchable. Because what people forget is that everybody who they expect to watch their film, or who they want to watch their film, is used to watching TV, however awful it is, created to phenomenally high production values, and with a level of dare I say, directorship or something like that, that is very, very, very good. So when the amateur goes out there and is having this epic adventure, and they're stumbling around, and it's the camera's shaky, stuff's out of focus, the sound's rubbish, you can get away with a few things. You know, you can drop the odd ball when you're juggling. You can't drop all of them, because then you're not juggling at all. And and that's one of the things at the film festival we're trying to foster, we're just trying to get people tooled up with the few skills that they need to not muck it up.
Equipment you need to make high quality footage is getting cheaper and cheaper, and things like helmet cam and drones, they're all great, but there's a time and a place for all that in your story that you're trying to tell.
The punchline being that boring people filmed superbly make a boring film, and an interesting, goofy, true individual like Ed March, filmed with crude, slightly crappy equipment, will always trump the gear.
That's correct, yes.
Absolutely, obviously. My grievance, I'll rephrase that. When you get into the deadly world of the forum and the chat room, I've been chagrined to see how many people have misunderstood my message completely, to think that if you own a big motorcycle, there's something wrong with you, or you failed. Which of course you haven't. It's all about, of course, what you do with it. My grievance has always been, I think, with the poser, with the person who spends all the money on the huge bike and all the tricks and the accessories, and will then look you in the eye as a man to man and say, oh, I'd love to do a trip like yours, but I can't afford it. And
that's the thing, you're far better off instead of spending £12,000 on the big bike with all the accessories and the fancy luggage, spend £3,000, still have all the kit you need, and then you've got £9,000 left over to do a trip. Don't spend it all on the bike and say, oh, well, now I haven't got any money left.
Yeah, unless you're independently wealthy, then knock yourself out. Get all the accessories you want. Get the best GPS. Get a £3,000 suit or whatever it is, you know. But our experience, sadly, is that you can go to an event or a weekend, and there's all these people lined up with the gear, and yet, but then they'll tell you, oh, I can't go there, it's too dangerous. Oh, I'd like to do that, but it's too difficult. Oh, and they've got tons of equipment, and for all the equipment they've got an excuse that goes with it. All we want to do is encourage people to get out there, and if they're going to do it on the biggest motorcycle ever bought, fantastic. Massive power to their elbow, huge respect, and we look forward to seeing their film about it when they come back. You probably won't use this bit, but I've got to tell you, if you're me, I get sent a lot of emails from people about asking questions, confused or not quite sure, and they think I know something they don't. They're normally wrong. I don't know anything special, but I get a lot of emails from people who want to do a trip, and they've probably gone online, they've watched Long Way Round, whatever, and they say, I'd like to do a trip like yours. I've seen this Mondo Enduro film, a friend of mine lent it to me, that looks great fun, I'd like to do that, but I'm not really comfortable with the idea of handling a GS 1200, so I think I'm going to take a car or something like that. Or so what's gone wrong, it's gone right for BMW, what's gone wrong is that normal people who are intelligent seem to think that if they haven't got a big bike that's called an adventure bike, then they're not allowed to go, or they'd be foolish to go because they'd be on the wrong thing. And even now at Horizons Unlimited weekend, you'll see people looking at Ed March's crappy, trashy scooter, moped, and instead of saying, wow, well, if that can do it, then that's all I need to do a trip, they don't say that. They say, how did you manage to do your trip on that? So even when they're presented with the evidence that there's a guy who spent nothing and had a great time, they still don't believe it. That misconception is what I feel I'm happy to fight against. That's a stupid question. If you know anything about that woman, or have seen her or spoken to her, why wouldn't you want to be married to her? I mean, it's just insane. I've not had a life of like A-list girlfriends, and then I end up marrying this incredible person. I mean, it's like you would think I tricked her into it or something like that, or she thought she was, she could have done so much better. If I had my life again, and somebody said, okay, you can have all of your motorcycle trips around the world, but you can't have Lois, or you can have Lois and you have to spend your entire life working in a cube in a grey office building, I'd choose the latter, without a doubt. She's more, just being around that woman is more exciting and invigorating than any sunset or watching the wildebeest gamble across the Serengeti or going down the Pan American Highway. None of that counts compared to the love and the friendship and companionship of an exceptional life partner. The thing that no one wants to talk about is instead of doing a trip or whatever, put your effort into charming your wife into coming with you. Or put it another way. I mean, it's so great to see couples like Dan and Linz Meller. They're not famous, but they wanted to do a trip, and she had enough fire in her to say, well, I'm going to be your passenger. So she got a license, and they had his and hers DRZ 400s.
It's been fine. That's all I can say about that. We get on. We have our ups and downs, but generally speaking, when it comes to things relating to two wheels, we agree, I think. We've been on some great holidays together, even before Mondo Enduro. We had a fabulous 2 weeks in Morocco that time. I don't remember meeting the guys in Morocco.
Maybe that's when we were cycling.
It must have been.
Oh, okay.
Because we saw when you and me were on the FJ in Morocco, we met a load of guys on the boat back, and they were covered in dust. Clearly been gooning about in the mountains all around the desert somewhere. But there was like 4 or 5 Germans. They clearly hadn't washed for a month, and they were stubble. And
it's the coolest thing I've seen in my life.
They were, they'd clearly been having a hard time, or just, hadn't they? Those ones we met on the boat. But when we bumped into Rudy and Matthias in Romania, we camped by the side of the river with them that night and had beers and told stories and chatted. And we stayed with them the next day, and we had lunch in a town called Timișoara. And it was the worst food we'd ever come across, I think. The potatoes were still green. The chicken had no meat in it at all. But they had some dual sport bikes that were much more capable on the rough Romanian tarmac than our modern Japanese sports tourers and ordinary road bikes. And it was then that I realised that there might be a different way of travelling other than the gigantic sports tourers.
Metal Mule. Engineered to be different.